All right, as usual, this is just a quick note about webinar etiquette. To keep things going smoothly, please make sure that you are muted. If you want to ask questions in the chat box, there is a chat button at the bottom of your screen. You can see here in blue, and feel free to type your questions in. Be careful to note to whom you are addressing your questions. Most of them will go to everyone. And throughout the presentation, we do have slides available to have us stop and allow for verbally asked questions. But obviously, just to, in the interest of time, if you can direct most of your questions to the chat box, that will make it go a little bit more smoothly, and I promise we will get them answered. It will also provide us a record of things that we can improve clarity on. All right, next. All right, as a final quick note, most of you guys are aware, but we do track attendance to these. In particular, if you are a company who is working to sign up or is new to the program, please make sure that you pay close attention to the attendance tracking instructions. Towards the end of the meeting, we will ask you to sign your name and your company name into the comment box, but that will happen at the end of the meeting to ensure that you've been able to be present for the entire meeting. And just a quick update, our application and LOI wait time is about 3 weeks. Our inspections are about 6 weeks out. We are working on getting another temporary inspector in place, as well as working to hire a full-time inspector. So we are working to improve that, as well as some other process improvements to shorten that wait time. But please be aware. And then finally, our QA review is about a 3-week wait time. Next. All right, here's some announcements. So some contact updates for those of you who may not have been in the last couple meetings. We are fully transitioned over to solar@austinenergy.com. We have as our primary email. Please do not copy other members on the team to avoid confusion. I think that we have finally dialed in a system thanks to our really awesome team, where this really works well to get people's questions answered, directed to the right people, and answered in the quickest and most timely manner. So please make note to direct any questions, whether they be about enrollments or general programmatic questions or technical questions. Please direct all solar questions to solar@austinenergy.com. Try to make it easy for you guys to remember. If you have questions or requests about inspections, that of course goes to the solarinspections@austinenergy.com email, and we will respond within 2 business days. Please do not email Mike Van Zant or myself, Sarah Norris, directly, as we, we may not always be in the same positions that we are in now. So this is just a way of making sure that we have that redundancy and we have multiple eyes on your requests. For permitting questions, you'll need to contact DSD through the Service Center. The number and email address are noted here. And additional contact information can be found both at the end of this presentation as well as in the back of in the Austin Energy Design Criteria, pages 7 and 8. Next. And we have a quick team update. Most importantly, I want to note that this meeting marks our full year since we went off, out of the office. So it's been a whole year since we've seen each other and shared tacos in person. And since we've been remote, I in particular have been hiding something. And I find myself here at our year mark. I am 36 weeks pregnant. So I will be adding another solar advocate to the world here in the next few weeks. The estimated time of arrival is April 15th. So I will be out for a couple months, starting somewhere around mid-April. And so I'm not responding to your emails because I don't care, or I don't think that they are important. It is because I am catering to a small, hungry being. So please, if you find yourself wondering why you are not getting responses from me, please direct any inquiries to solar@austinenergy.com, and our amazing team will make sure that you get taken care of. And I will expect to be back somewhere towards the beginning of the summer. So next. All right. Our upcoming meetings. We have a general meeting coming up on Thursday, April 15th, which is my due date. But I, at this time, still expect to be there. This is mandatory for all contractors. Everyone is required to attend the April 15th meeting. So please make sure to make plans accordingly. Our next technical training meeting is Thursday, May 20th. Again, this is mandatory only for contractors that are attempting to get on the list or get back on the list after a suspension or after falling off. It is also recommended for new technical staff. I will note that this next technical meeting, we will be covering updates that are being made to the DIG. And I highly recommend that all companies send their electrician, their master electrician, or a somebody who can effectively communicate the design changes. This is a big deal. We haven't made this level of update in probably 5 or 6 years. So there will be a lot of really good information there. And I highly, highly encourage all contractors to send a representative, a technical representative to that meeting. And finally, we will be following up with another administrative training meeting on Thursday, June 17th, covering, again, mostly the same stuff we've covered here. All right, one of the big things that we're going to be going through this meeting is it's that time of year again. We do our program updates to the residential program in the spring. So we have some updates to the guidelines and more importantly, the CAF. Very grateful that Val, our new program coordinator on this front, has been working diligently to really, really streamline some processes that we think will not only make it clearer and easier for you to communicate to your customers, but also quicker for us to review the applications. There's also a small code of conduct update. So we will be sending out the sort of package of documents as well as a signature page today. And we will be expecting all of those back by close of business on April 16th. That will be also considered the effective date for the new program guidelines. The documents can be found on the homepage in eecp starting on Monday, March 22nd, but you'll also receive an email with them today. And finally, what we need from you guys is please review the new guidelines as well as the code of conduct update. And the signature page that will be sent out with them will need to be completed by the president, CEO, COO, or ops manager at your company. The reason the operational component is really important is because we want to make sure that the person responsible for guiding your processes at your company is aware of the update to the CAF. Only the signature page needs to be submitted to us at solar@austinenergy by close of business on Friday, April 16th, preferably with the following email subject line: company name -2021 program documents, and ideally with your signature sheet saved in the following format. Please note that as of May 31st, 2021, we will no longer accept the old CAF. And also note that if you do not submit your program documents by the date stated here, that you will run the risk of being locked out of EECP. Just please be aware of that. We try to give you ample time. We will give you some warnings prior to that date, but please try to get it in. That gives you a full month to sort it out and submit it to us. So thank you. Next. Alrighty, this is just a super quick overview of the types of changes that are in these documents. So the main one for the guidelines update is that we have added the lightning arrestor requirement back in. We're also working to get that added to the dig, and so that will ultimately live there. But for now, since we know that Rory is looking for those in the inspections, we wanted to make sure that it is clearly codified and stated. So that has been added back into the guidelines in section 3J. The bigger program updates this time around are actually in eecp formatting and calculations that Val will review later on in the presentation. But one of the things that I think is really exciting and really will do a lot to streamline our processes is the new and improved CAP format. So you can see here, there's a little bit more deliberate customer consent, especially surrounding participation in the solar ed course. It's a better format for easier processing. So this will hopefully improve some of the wait times on getting LOIs, especially when we get that big push in the summer, because you guys, no rest for the weary out there. And finally, there are more details on the specifics of this CAF later on at the end of this presentation. Again, reminder, as of May 31st, we will no longer accept the old CAF. So please, as quickly as possible, get this integrated into your operation flow, because we don't want you to have to get new documents signed by customers, etc. All right, just a couple minor changes to the code of conduct. For those of you who are relatively new, the original code of conduct was rolled out in 2019 and is required for all contractors participating in customer energy services programs. So home performance, solar, weatherization, green building, etc. The updated version as of 2020 has the following changes. Just sort of a general technical change, which updates all references to participating contractors. This version clarifies that it does not that the code of conduct does not represent a contract between the contractor and austinenergy. Contractors currently involved in active litigation may be suspended from participation in programs. And austinenergy may issue a stop work notice in the event that the participating contractor is observed operating in a manner that is in violation of federal, state, or local laws, or is unsafe to either life or property. So those are just a couple updates that have been made to the verbiage in the code of conduct. Next. I'm going to pass this one off to Micah really quick. We have some exciting news. So I want him to be able to present it. Here you go.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. This is Micah Jasuda. For some of y'all, nice to meet you. For some of y'all, long time no see. And so this is about residences with a conduit installed during the new construction process and then hidden up behind the walls. So this has been kind of an ongoing conundrum for a while of how to handle this. And we had kind of a fresh opportunity to work with DSD to come up with the process. So basically, the developers or the builders who are building the residences, and a lot of these are going on in Miller specifically, but I know they're happening over across the city as well. The builders, when they pull their building permit now, can add in the notes, since it's just a note field on the application for the building permit, you can add the words pre-wire for solar. And if they do that and it's installed and they pass the rough inspection, then that conduit is now presumed to have been inspected by DSD. So this should give, this gives you as the solar contractor some assurity in the future, whenever you are going to install solar at that house, that conduit, which you can no longer see, was properly inspected by DSD. So you'll be able to go to the electric permit, the original electric permit that for the construction of the residence, go look at the notes, the description of that permit, and if you see pre-wire for solar and that the electric permit passed, then that tells you that conduit was inspected and that you can use it. Now, you still do need to pass full inspection for the auxiliary power permit for solar. So, when that conduit was installed, it was empty, most likely, and was inspected for what it was at that time. But now you've added wire to it, or fittings, or whatever else at this point. So it will be inspected for code compliance at that point of the solar installation. But at least now you won't have inspectors asking you to remove parts of the wall, or not letting you use something just because they can't see it. So in the case that pre-wire for solar note is not in the original new construction permit, as will be the case for everything currently installed, you can work with Rory to do a review. So Rory is willing, I say Rory, I guess our solar inspectors are willing to go out there and review that conduit with you, even if it didn't go through this process kind of on a case-by-case basis. They have some criteria. It will be difficult to pass if it doesn't have that pre-wire for solar note in there. So moving forward, we hope that we can spread the word out and get the builders and contractors who are working on this conduit installation to use this pre-wire for solar notation, so that in the future we have a lot more comfort and assurity when we use these conduits in the future for solar.
Awesome. Thank you, Micah. And yeah, this was a surprising amount of work and coordination done by Micah and the DSD group. And we're really happy that we were able to kind of finalize a process for this. Also, just want to give a shout out to all of you guys out there. I mean, you guys have escalated this issue to us multiple times, and we're just really grateful that you give us that feedback. And we're really glad that we could push improvements based on the feedback that you had given us. So just like to call out that we do listen to you. So please continue if there are opportunities for improvement on our side. We're always excited to take on those projects. We can't always do them quickly, but we will try to solve those types of problems. So thank you again to those of you who contributed to escalating this issue. Next. All right, couple safety updates. We are so close to the end mark, guys. Like, people are getting shots in arms. It's going, things are going well. We want to just hold on just a little bit longer. Don't let down your guard too quickly. Until we get a little bit closer to normal, we still want to discourage door-to-door sales because of the nature of COVID. And so, of course, we cannot prohibit them, but we just want to really communicate that we discourage that in order to help us do our part to stop the spread. However, we have moved to a state with inspections such that contractors may send a qualified representative to inspections as long as they take the appropriate COVID-19 safety measures, proper mask, gloves, and social distancing. There will still be, of course, some mandatory attendance for things like screenless inverters, batteries, and when otherwise specifically requested by austinenergy. So that's just to say that if you do not fall into one of those mandatory attendance categories, you are not required to attend the inspection, but you may send a qualified representative to attend the inspection. We're hoping that also reduces the sort of recidivism reinspection rate. So please note that that's the direction we're moving in. Next. Speaking of COVID-19 vaccines, so I'm sure many of you are aware, but we're going to do our little, public health announcements here. That currently Austin Public Health is vaccinating for phase 1A, 1B plus teachers. If you can shoehorn your way into any of these groups, please go go for it. You can sign up on Austin Public Health. The link is here. It is, they are only administering Pfizer and Moderna. They do not yet have Johnson & Johnson at APH, but the vaccines are free, and you do not have to have insurance to get them. I know that there are a number, and we'll talk about it on the next page, there are a number of other resources that have already moved into phase 1C. That is the case in Texas. They've moved to phase 1C, which includes folks 50 years or older, regardless of health conditions. But I just, on a personal level, I just want to say I highly recommend going ahead and seeing if you can just get in on one of these vaccine things, since you guys are kind of, essential workers that have contact with the community. The quicker we can get y'all vaccinated, the quicker we can really test the capacity of our solar program. So, next slide. So as noted previously, you can pre-register with Austin Public Health online. I have found that you can pre-register not only online, but you can also go through and register with individual pharmacies, and they will reach out to you and let you know when they have appointments released. Austin Public Health releases appointments every Monday at 5 p.m. It's a little bit of a janky website, but you can go in and sort of quote get in line. And they do a pretty good job of funneling people through. So anyway, they get about 12,000 doses a week at Austin Public Health. But yeah, just if you go to the website noted here, you can find information on that. Some additional resources are the CDC Vaccine Finder. Also, HEB has them now. So I read an article that called HEB the moral center of the Texas universe. So I thought that was a good reference, but they release their appointments at sort of odd times. So it can be a bit tricky to get on their list. And for those of you in the group who are super tech savvy, there is a Slack group specifically for Texas that can notify you when new appointments are being released on many platforms. I will make a quick note that if you are going far from Austin to get your vaccine, that just to be prepared, because in particular the second dose, but I've heard tell that also with the first dose, you can have a bit of a strong reaction, like feeling quite unwell. So if you're driving, just make sure to have a vaccine buddy with you who can take the wheel if you need to take a break from driving back. And just a note, like the sooner we all get vaccinated, the sooner we can get back to normal. And while I really appreciate doing these meetings via WebEx, I miss having tacos with you guys. So I hope that, once I get back from maternity leave, we can start slowly integrating back to doing some of this stuff in person. So next. Okay, so these are just some notes on the interconnection and shade analyses. We are working to make some broader general updates to the interconnection guide, specifically around batteries, although those probably won't, that full suite of changes probably won't come out until later this year. But if you are proposing to install batteries within a building, you do need to get special permission from the Austin Fire Department. They are updating their list all the time for which types of batteries are allowed to be installed inside. Speaking of batteries, we've seen a huge spike after the snowpocalypse. So just a quick note for those of you who are part of the Powerwall rush. If you are, the way that you need to go about dig per review for solar systems with batteries is if the batteries increase the potential system size, solar plus storage, to 50 kilowatts or more, then you must submit a DIGPA for AE review. So even if your standard solar service is under that 50 kilowatts, and so you're generally submitting your solar to be you don't have to get the AE stamp of approval. If the total system size solar plus storage is over 50 kilowatts, that qualifies as a system that requires austinenergy review. Because they pose significant risk to backfeed to the grid. So for further clarification, please reach out to solar@austinenergy.com, and we're happy to answer any further questions about batteries. We do understand that there is a lot of work to be done in the codification and instructions around how to safely and effectively install batteries in our territory, and we are working with other departments to get there. A quick reminder of in-person shade analyses. Please note that the requested shade analyses must be performed on site with photos from the roof. For winter photos, summer foliage needs to be accounted for. The location of the photos must be mapped out because the photos don't necessarily mean anything to us unless we know where they are taken. And the shading impacts need to be calculated and reported correctly on the TSRF report. Next. All right, and I'm going to hand it off. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I'll be taking us through the next bunch of slides on our registration requirements and what it takes to become a participating contractor on the list. This should be useful for those of you who are new to the program. For those of you who have been doing this for a while, apologies if some of this will seem a little bit repetitive. All right, so this is a basic workflow of how to become a participating contractor in our program. A reminder that the first step is to register as a vendor with the City of Austin. Registering as a vendor will allow you to participate in all AustineNergy rebate programs and generally to bid on City of Austin projects. As far as getting into the solar rebate programs, once you have registered as a vendor, you'll then submit the rebate program application for the solar residential or solar commercial programs. There's several required documents that will come with your application. Importantly, you will need your TDLR electrical contractor license to see that you have a valid license as a contractor, as well as your liability, workers' comp, and automobile insurances that are valid, as well as endorsed copies of our contractor handbook and our code of conduct as well. And then you'll also need to attend at least one administrative and one technical meeting before entry into the program. And then, of course, all participating contractors are required to send a representative to each of our general meetings that happen quarterly as well. And a note here at the bottom that incomplete applications to register as a participating contractor will expire after 100 days if there's no action taken, no further action taken on these applications. So for instance, if you submit the rebate program application to AustineNergy, but do not attend an administrative or technical meeting within 100 days after submitting that application, the application will be considered incomplete and you'll be basically put back in the queue to have to resubmit once again. All right, ongoing contractor requirements. These are just the basic documentation requirements, and as well as some basic requirements on projects and such that need to be met. So you need to maintain current insurance documents with us. So every time your insurance changes, just make sure to send that to us at solar@austinenergy.com. We will make sure that gets uploaded to eecp so that your eecp accounts can remain active, as well as current program documents. So things like the contractor handbook and code of conduct. When those change, we'll ask for signatures from your folks in order to make sure those documents are current as well. Attending the general contractor meetings, which are mandatory for all participating contractors in our solar programs. Consistent programs, which means doing at least one rebated project every 6 months, and adherence to all of our compliance rules related to the program. An additional note on doing consistent projects, if you are not doing a rebated project once every 6 months or so, just make sure that you notify us that you would like to remain in the program, even if you're not doing regular rebated projects within our service territory. I think I jumped that. All right, a few basics on our energy efficiency collaboration platform. which we call eecp. How do I set it up so that the right people are notified? And we'll also take you through the basic workflow of the different steps that you'll move through as you process a rebate application in eecp. So what is eecp? Who needs a user profile? So eecp is our online platform for managing all solar rebate projects and for all rebate programs across the Austin Energy energy efficiency programs as well. So the rebate application processor will be the person or people within your team who are processing rebate applications through eecp from the initial application step all the way through the QA review process that follows the inspections. And then the final step in eecp is the initiate payment stage where the rebate check is approved and issued. So the best practice for user profiles is to have a resource account, just a general account for the full team. The next best practice is to have one per person who's working on submitting applications through eecp. The worst practice is to share one single person's user profile, so we want to make sure to have some variation there. We do see some common user profile login issues. If you do have any login issues, just make sure to email solar@austinenergy.com and we can work on getting that resolved for you as quickly as possible. But most often it is because of expiring insurance documents. Insurance documents are the one type of document that if they expire, you'll have your account inactivated in eecp if you don't update those right away. So just make sure that whenever your current insurance is coming up on its expiration, that you get that renewed and you get those new insurance documents over to us so that we can make sure to maintain your active eecp account. And also password changes also prevent some user profile or also prevent some logins as well. So just make sure to notify us if you have any of those issues as well. So just some basics on a day in the life of a solar project here in Austin Energy service territory. So first step, you'll submit the rebate application within eecp. Please make sure to include certain information like the SolarEd confirmation number that the customer receives after they complete the solar education exam. Also the letter of intent and other required documents. Other required documents included up front for a rebate application include the signed CAF as well as the layout for the planned project. The next step is permitting. So just a reminder that especially for projects where you'll be using a subcontractor, that the general contractor is the one that needs to pull that permit, not the subcontractor. So you request permits through the Austin Build and Connect or AB&C portal. So the solar permit in particular is the Auxiliary Power Permit 305. And also a Distributed Generation Planning Application or DIGPA is required. The DIGPA has automatic approval if it's under 50 kilowatts. For anything over 50 kilowatts, it will require additional review by Austin Energy first, whether by our team or a different group within Austin Energy. After permitting, we move to the installation step, where we deal with things like service rebuilds, rough inspections for conduit trenches and such. We send our inspectors out for those rough inspections if you request them. And if you do need to request a rough inspection, please email solarinspections@austinenergy.com. Also, meter variance is another part of the installation process. If you need to request a meter variance, we have contact information for that later on in this presentation. In dealing with any various exceptions that may apply to your project. Once the installation is complete, then you request inspection from our group. For rebated projects, you request those through eecp by closing at the installation step, and that automatically triggers the post-inspection workflow step in eecp. For non-rebated projects, you request those inspections via email by contacting solarinspections@austinenergy.com. And through each of those channels, we will schedule an inspection for you in due course and have one of our inspectors come out. Before each inspection, just please make sure that you're carefully QA/QCing the system, as always. adhering to the inspection checklist as you go through that review of the system, just to make sure that all important requirements are met. And make sure that your permit is paid in full before you make the request for inspection as well. Also, just make sure the permit is active. Sometimes we have issues with expired permits at the time that we go to schedule an inspection. We cannot schedule the inspection with an expired permit. Just a reminder, do not request any solar inspections in Austin Energy service territory through DSD. Those are all scheduled through our group here at Austin Energy. For anything that's not in Austin Energy service territory, of course, then you would go through DSD for that if it's within the city. Once the inspection passes, then we move to the meter release, to the meter install stage. So this may involve this will involve the complex metering dispatch team. What happens is we'll notify the metering operations group that the meter is ready to install. And within 2 weeks after passing the final inspection, typically, their team will go out and install the solar meter on the customer's property. And then you can energize the system after that. And then that project is complete. But as for the last miscellaneous steps, things like solar billing, permission to operate, and loan closing documents, we realize there are some variations across projects as to some of the final requirements that the customer will have. In particular, looking at permission to operate, even though Austin Energy does not issue formal PTO letters within its service territory, if, for instance, your customer needed additional proof of PTO for a loan or for a different type of circumstance that we don't normally see, then just let us know by emailing solar@austinenergy.com, and we can certainly arrange to provide additional documentation of that. So these are just some miscellaneous circumstances in which additional attention may be required to the project. But these are all the steps that take you through the normal course of a solar project here in Austin, from the application all the way to the installation of the solar meter and energizing the system and the payment of the rebate check in the case of rebate applications. Does anyone have any questions on that part? All right. So we'll just do a quick overview here of the solar programs that we offer here at Austin Energy. And these include a residential program, commercial program, and multifamily program. So first things first, it's good to understand how the crediting of solar production works here in Austin Energy territory. So a reminder that we do not follow what's commonly referred to as net energy metering. What we have is the value of solar rates, also referred to as the value of solar tariff. So Austin Energy credits customers for the energy generated by their PV system through the value of solar tariff throughout the entire life of the system. And so the VOST will vary depending on the size of the solar system and also on the customer meter type, whether it's a residential meter or whether it's a commercial meter within these two different categories that you see in the table here. So the current rate is 9.7 cents per kilowatt hour of generation for residential systems. And for commercial systems up to 999 kilowatts AC, we have 6.7 cents per kilowatt hour today, and 4.7 cents per kilowatt hour for all commercial meters at 1,000 kilowatts and above. And so note that these rates were in effect as of January 1st of 2018, and that they'll be in effect until the next cost of service study that occurs within Austin Energy. We do reassess the value of solar occasionally as part of our cost of service study, so you can stay up to date on the latest value of solar rates through this link here. All right, and this is just some additional information on the value of solar tariff as well as the solar rebate amounts. So as any of you who have worked on projects in our territory before will know, the current residential rebate amount is a one-time payment of $2,500. For commercial projects, there's a tiered system depending on the size of the system. It's a production-based incentive as opposed to a one-time payment of $2,500. So for the commercial program, the small category pays at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. The medium category of 75 to 400 kilowatts AC pays at 4 cents per kilowatt hour, and the large commercial category at above 400 kilowatts pays at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Again, this is a production-based incentive, or PBI, credited to the bill over 10 years. Quick residential education program overview to go in a little bit more depth here. As far as the guidelines are concerned for how our residential program works, those eligible are austinenergy customers with a residential meter. This is a one-time rebate, is a $2,500 payment per address. And a note that the customer must have taken the solar education course and exam before they are eligible for the rebate. The customer must take the solar ed course and complete that before signing the customer agreement form and having that submitted to austinenergy. Solar systems must also meet certain production requirements based on solar access. So for instance, we require an average total solar resource fraction of at least 75% across the entire system. So the minimum system size that qualifies is 3 kilowatts DC or 2.5 kilowatts AC. And the maximum system size is up to 110% of one's annual home energy usage. So austinenergy does not allow in its territory any system that is estimated to produce more than 110% of the home's annual energy consumption. Though exceptions may be made with provided documentation of an expected increase in the home's energy usage. So for instance, if they'll be purchasing an electric vehicle or adding a pool or something that will significantly boost the home's energy consumption, then exceptions can be made for that type of oversizing. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact solar@austinenergy.com. As for a quick overview of the commercial program and its guidelines, again, this is for austinenergy customers with a commercial meter. It offers monthly bill credits under the production-based incentive over 10 years, with the incentive rate based on system size. So we have these 3 tiers here for small, medium, and large commercial customers. And then there's just one PBI project allowed per revenue meter. And there's also a leasing program pilot that is in place that pays at 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And again, for more information, you can contact our solar email, and we'll be happy to provide you additional details on this program, as well as the residential program. As for the multifamily program, here are some quick guidelines on that as well. So this applies for an austinenergy customer with a residential meter, multifamily and or new residential construction where the applicant has more than 5 residential installations in a fiscal year. So that's the guideline for what qualifies under the multifamily program. So note that when an apartment or a multifamily property is adding solar for general use, if it's not going to be used for specific residences within the property, but instead for things like pool pumps, then in this case, it would qualify under the commercial program for commercial incentives and would not be participating in the multifamily program. So the multifamily program has a one-time capacity-based incentive that pays at 40 cents per watt. That's capped at $2,500 per unit, or at 50% of the total installed cost. And for multifamily affordable housing, for this part of the program, it pays at 60 cents per watt. So any more information about this as well, please contact solar@austinenergy.com. So just some basic information on the documentation that is required across each of these rebate programs that we have in the solar program. To apply for all of these programs, for residential, for multifamily, and for commercial, the basic application needs to include a signed customer agreement form and also a layout of the proposed system. In order to request an inspection once the system has been installed, for residential projects, the documentation required, you'll need to have your invoice and your warranty statement. For multifamily and commercial projects, to request an inspection, you'll need the wiring diagram, string size calculations, the final contract, and photos of the system. And then we may also request a shade analysis at any point in the process, or a justification for oversizing the system as well when it's projected to produce more than 110% of the home's annual consumption. All right, I believe Val is taking over at this point, so I'll leave this part for her.
Yeah, thanks, David. Can everybody hear me? Or David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I have a history of my mic not working on WebEx. Okay, yeah, well, hi, everybody. Let's go through how to process an enrollment. Some of you may already be familiar with this process. Bear with me, and there are a few changes that hopefully will make everybody's life a little easier. So for the application stage, I think you can go ahead to the next slide. Thanks, Dave. You'll find our website at rebates.austinenergy.com. And then if you're set up as a participating contractor, you'll be able to log in. To create a new enrollment for a solar project, you'll want to go to enrollments and select new enrollment. We've highlighted it there on the right side. Go ahead to the next slide. You'll want to select the Solar PV Residential Education Program for a residential project. And then typically I would recommend putting in the account number as far as when it goes to searching. So you can select the drop down on general search and put account number, enter your client's account number in there, and then their name should pop up and you can hit next. Alternatively, if you skip this stage, you can enter it in the application phase, but this will help auto-populate the fields for you. Go ahead to the next one. Thanks, Dave. Step 6. We've done a little bit to clean up this page. You'll no longer enter the total costs on this page. You'll see we've removed that box for you. There is the reference number. The eecp program is used across austinenergy rebate programs. It's not just for the solar program. So we have some fields here that work a little differently than we would like. For this case, the reference number in the Solar Ed program, we use this number to refer back to the Solar Education Course confirmation number. So although this number is going to auto-populate with the same number as the enrollment number, we ask that you go ahead and delete what's there and then enter in the reference number that your client has given you. Next, you want to drop down to the battery storage questions. So if the project has battery storage, all you need to do there is fill out that section. We also would like to know if this is in addition to an existing system. When we say that, we mean an existing solar system. So if there are already panels on site, please let us know. And we'll go ahead and get that done. Let's see, account number. If you entered the account number previously, this should auto-populate. If not, you can enter it in, and then it will pull up your customer's information. Go ahead to the next slide. Continuing on step 6, we have the applicant or the account holder. We do run into this a lot. In order to apply for the program, your applicant needs to be either the austinenergy account holder, an authorized user on the account, which means that the account holder has said that this person can pay the bills and be privy to account information, or they need to be listed as a property owner in TCAD. So you'll see that it will pop up with the account holder and their information when you're entering the applicant information. If it's easy to do so, it's really helpful just to have that person be the same as the account holder. If not, then we may ask for further information. And then make sure you enter in their email. I don't believe it will let you go to the next page if you don't enter the applicant information email section there. Typically, the mailing address will be the same as the installation address. If for some reason they would like the check mailed to a different address, please make sure to fill that section out. Go ahead to the next slide. Again, well, you'll see this throughout this presentation in multiple places. The applicant, also the payee, they must be one of the following: the account holder, an authorized user, or the property owner. If they are not the account holder or the property owner, then what you can do is ask the account holder to call up austinenergy and add them as an authorized user, and then we could move forward with their name on the CAF and their signatures on the CAF. What you'll see, this isn't always checked, but if the applicant is the account holder, in the payee section, if you want to just go ahead and fill in the round bubble there for account holder versus applicant, that makes our process a little easier. So if it is the same person, please feel free to do that for us. And then as far as closing out the application page, you'll want to click Save before moving on to the next step. And we have our pro tip here at the bottom. You'll hear me say this again and again throughout the presentation. Please make sure that the names are consistent. So the applicant, as you have listed in eecp on the application page, needs to be the same as the applicant name that you have on the CAF form. And that also needs to be the same person that signs the CAF form. So we need to see some consistency there. Thanks, David. Yeah, and I guess we can pause for any questions.
I know that we're tight on time, but it's been brought to my attention that folks are having trouble communicating to the everyone channel.
Oh.
So if you have questions or comments, I'll just have you direct them to me. Sarah, this is Sarah, by the way, Sarah Norris, for now, and I will funnel them into, I'll make sure that they get answered. And then when we get to the end of the meeting, I'll also have everybody just send me a direct message with your company name and your name, but please wait until the instructions at the end of the meeting. Thanks. Carry on.
Okay. In the application page, step 8 moves us to the next page in eecp. So you can see in the right-hand corner there, we were on the applicant information page. Now we've dropped down to the documents page. On this page, you'll be able to enter the 2 documents that are required to submit a project for review for the letter of intent. So those documents are the customer agreement form. We also call it the CAF, and the layout. When you are uploading these documents, you can click New and then select the document, or you can just go ahead and click on the little edit pen and paper icon there, and then you can drop those documents in. When you drop them in, you'll want to make sure that they're appropriately selected in the dropdown, and then make sure that you save them. I think that might be on the next slide. Real quick, before we go to the next slide, please save the document. If you have the option to print them as you're moving through your processes, please refrain from printing them. And of course, we do get this question sometimes. We do still accept handwritten signatures. Go ahead, David. So here's, that detailed instructions on how to save these documents. When they're saved correctly, you'll see a green check mark so that you'll know that it is in our system as it needs to be done. You won't be able to process your application if you do not have these 2 docs. Go ahead. For step 8, this moves us over to the measures page. Because we like to keep things interesting and magical in the solo world, in order to access this page, you're going to want to right-click on the white space, and that will pop up the field so you'll be able to enter them. Go ahead to the next page, David. So these are small things, but we like to find joy in small things, and I hope it brings you a little bit of joy to know that we are now having the orientations in the measures page where you enter the system-specific information. The orientations and the amount of modules are now grouped, hopefully for ease of processing, both for you and also for us. When you are entering the orientations for your project, please know that, even if you have arrays that are separated on different roof surfaces or in different strings, if they are in the same tilt and azimuth, then you can enter them as just one orientation. So a lot of times, we'll have 3 orientations that are all the same azimuth angle and tilt angle. And we do want to save you from doing that extra work. The point of this section is for us to generate our own PV watts data about the production of your system. And so separating them out, if they have the same attributes there, is unnecessary. So hopefully that will be good news to some of y'all. Now, you'll be able to see this layout where we have the orientations grouped a little bit, and then also you'll see we've included some asterisks between each orientation, again, for ease of processing. You'll be seeing that Monday. So hopefully that will be a little bit exciting for you all. There are also new input fields. This is information you're already getting to us or getting over to us on the CAF, but now we'll be having that in eecp as well. So if you will be able to take the extra time to enter the estimated generation for the system. Again, this is information you already have on the CAF, and it is our understanding that this is the information that you're telling your customer that the system will be producing. So if the system is facing shade, then you should be accounting for that, and then this number will probably be lower than our PV watts generated rating for it. All of these things should be accounted in that number that you are presenting to the customer. There's also a field for the customer annual energy consumption. Again, this is information you're probably already getting, and moving forward, we'd like for you to enter that in eecp as well. Thanks, David. So with these fields being entered, what you'll also see is some new warnings that will pop up in case your system is, within likelihood of being rejected. That there's kind of a process if we have to kick the applications back to you. So this is our attempt to help you guys get the applications to an acceptable format and content before hitting the submit button. So you will see a pop-up warning. When the warning pops up, it will tell you if the system is oversized, meaning if you are above 110% of the consumption. If that's the case, we hope you're all aware, you'll need to get an oversizing waiver signed by the client explaining why the system is oversized. And then also, just because sometimes there are typos, sometimes other things happen. If the system is over-promising estimation, you will get a notice saying that it looks a little questionable, and you'll also get one if we're seeing that the production is below the 75% total solar resource fraction. Now, this warning will not stop the application, so if you want to, you can still hit OK, and then we can review it. But if you see those warnings and they're surprising to you, you can hit cancel, and then you can go back and review your work and see if any changes need to be made before submitting. And again, we'll be rolling this out on Monday. Go ahead, David. Step 9, once the layout and CAF are entered, and please make sure there's consistency in the information between the CAF and what's entered into measures, then you can hit process, and that will send the applications over to us for review. And we typically are able to turn these applications into letters of intent within 2 to 3 weeks. So just as a general review for the application checklist, these are things that you want to make sure are consistent in your documentation and then also in the eecp. So you'll want to make sure that you've updated that reference number to match the solar education course confirmation number. You'll want to make sure that the installation address and the mailing address are correct. You'll want to make sure that the account number matches both on the CAF and in eecp. And you'll want to make sure, again, that the applicant is either the austinenergy account holder, an authorized user, or TCAD property owner, and that the applicant is the same person that signs the form. As far as measures, you'll want to make sure that the costs match what's in the CAF. The array capacity should be the same in measures, the CAF, and the layout. Annual generation should match between the CAF and the and ECP as well. And that's for the contractor entered field. Azimuth and tilt angle of the arrays should be called out on the layout. In the layout, we definitely prefer if you have a satellite version. We know a lot of you guys are working with software that gives you a satellite image of the home anyway. So if you can include that satellite version, that's our preference. And of course, any layout needs to be stamped by your NAPSUP certified professional. Go ahead, David. And we'll take a moment for inquisitive puppies. And I think we can move on to the next piece. So we have changed our software here at austinenergy. The customer agreement form, as the title infers, is that the customer is agreeing to, our guidelines and what we're expecting of them to accept the rebate. So this is the signed form that that we want to make sure we have a legit file in our records, and our new software will be a little more vocal if a form has not been correctly signed. So if you guys can help us by making sure that your forms are fully completed before the clients have them in front of them, if you can make sure that when you obtain the client signature, that you are saving the document and not printing it. And if you can, after the client has signed the document, please refrain from editing the document before you upload it into eecp. Go ahead, David. Again, our software, it gives us a pop-up saying that signatures are not valid if the documents have been edited after the signature. So it makes it really hard for us to be lenient on this. And if you guys can help us by making sure that the signatures are done well. If you have, DocuSign, you should be able to do this. We have reached out to a couple contractors about this and seen a lot of improvements. So we know it's a little extra nitpicky thing to do, but it shouldn't cause any extra work than what you guys are already doing to get documents over to us. Oh, one more note, if you go back there. So on the bottom there too, we know that you're not able to re-enter measures after you've submitted an application, but you are always allowed to go in and update a document in eecp. So if we do ping you for having a document that doesn't look like it was appropriately signed, you can always just go back in there and upload a new doc, and then just let us know by emailing SolarApp. Also worth noting is that once you upload a document there, it cannot be deleted or altered. So it is there for all time. Okay, go ahead, David. So as we mentioned, there are a few changes to the CAF. We've reorganized it. Hopefully the information has a little bit better of a flow. And we did take off some of the initials, before you had to initial each of the 4 pages. So now we're just having you initial the guidelines, and then on the CAF itself, we took the initials off of the bottom of the page, but we have added some at the top of the page. So please bear with us as we transition to this new format. So here we're going to be asking that the customer's initial that they're the property owner or an austinenergy account holder or user, that they've read the rebate guidelines, that they've participated in the online solar education course, and we've provided the link for that, and that they've received a confirmation number. We also have a note here that they understand what happens when they oversize the system, and of course that they've chosen you to be their contractor. So those items will now need to be initialed. And go ahead, David, if we can go to the next. So now we've put the, excuse me, we've kind of grouped these fields together. So if you are using a subcontractor, please do call that out. We do check for that. The representative that is having the form signed, or typically the salesperson, should be listed as a representative. And we've added a new field where we are asking for them to include their email for ease of communication if there are any questions about the CAF. Go ahead. Next, in customer details, none of this is new. It's just sort of all arranged into one spot for ease of review. Again, the applicant needs to be an austinenergy account holder, an austinenergy account user, or a TCAD property owner. And this information is the section that should be matching what you have entered into eecp. And there we have that SolarAid confirmation number. All of these fields need to be filled out. And that SolarAid confirmation number is one that you will need to bring over into eecp because it doesn't auto-populate there. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So the CAF, let's see, this is a new portion of it. We have always requested that you guys, take into account the customer's annual energy consumption and base the solar system, not to be more than 110% of their historic consumption. So we're taking that a little bit of a step further by really laying that information out in the CAF. So at this time, fields that have already been in the CAF, the home consumption, and then the estimated solar production, those are still in the form. To fill those out, we recommend you look at the bill. There's a convenient 12-month average. Sometimes it's a 13-month average consumption. You'll see on the bill insert over there. And so you can, if you don't have a full year's bill, you can multiply that by 12 and also, take into account if it's summer or winter months. So we ask that you put that information there. And, if you have questions about that, you can email Solar if it's a new build or if you have a partial bill and you need some help there. And then go ahead to the next slide. No, I guess we addressed the oversizing waiver a little bit further down. So hold on to that. We'll get there. So we have the total project costs. This should be the costs for the solar system. If you guys are doing additional work beyond a service upgrade, that's not supposed to be reflected in the invoice. And also not listed here as a total solar cost. The proposed system size is in kilowatts DC. So none of those things have changed. Again, we've just kind of changed where they're laid out on the form. But what you will see is these extra fields below. I'm sorry. We'll talk really quickly too. So if your CAF is rejected, it's probably, if it's not because you have the wrong applicant, then it may be because the production and the consumption values are outside of our parameters. So yeah, do please be aware that we're looking to make sure that solar projects are not above 110% of the production or of the consumption of the house. And we're also looking for that 75% total solar resource fraction, making sure that your system's achieving a decent amount of production. Let's go ahead to the next slide. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I'm really excited about the oversizing waiver, so I keep jumping ahead over here. So the oversizing waiver, at this point, we are asking too that you guys call out that percentage of annual home consumption met by solar production. I'm sure this is information that you are already putting out there as far as information to your clients. It's in a lot of proposals. So we just ask that you include it here so that when we're asking the client to, or your customer to, think about the oversizing, they have a percentage right in front of their face and they can have all that information in one spot. So this is the field where if the system is going to be exceeding 110% of their historic consumption or expected consumption, that we would like for you all to write in a reason why, and then have the client initial this at the time that the CAF is being signed. And so there are lots of reasons why someone might want a larger system if they're getting an EV, if they're installing a pool, if they're retiring, any of these sorts of things. We do try to discourage oversized systems that can cause problems and make it more difficult to increase our solar density down the road. So it's something that we definitely need to review before just automatically passing any system size. So this is a new portion of the CAF that we would like for you all to pay a little attention to, and hopefully we can get CAFs in that have this right the first time and avoid kicking them back and slowing the process down for everybody in the queue. Go ahead, David. And then the final new portion of the CAF is the rebate amount. So we'll enter that at the bottom here. Yeah, we're not expecting any rebate amount changes in the near future, but that's where this information lives now on the CAF. Go ahead. Yeah. So at this point, what we'll do is turn back over to David.
All right. I'll take us through some of the other portions of the application and the next steps that come after that. So this is just an example of a site layout document that you would submit as part of your application. So this is what the diagram would look like, some of the different details that we would include on the site layout, including some of the necessary details like the number of solar modules, their rating and type, as well as the number of inverters and their rating and type. And just a note to please make sure to include the orientation measures for each of the arrays on the site layout as well. So including the azimuth and pitch of each of those arrays. And a reminder that each layout needs to have an endorsement from a NABCEP certified professional, which provides accountability to the customer and to austinenergy in case there are any problems with the design. If you look over on the right side here in terms of the customer and contractor information that is included, the company name should be you as the general contractor that holds the contract. Even though subcontractors may be used for the installation, the primary contract must hold the contract and have the design responsibility. As for the customer name, this is self-explanatory, but it should match what is in the eecp and what the name on the CAF for the applicant in this case. It also allows us to cross-reference with Google Maps to check for shading issues as well. So this is just a good example of what a layout may look like and the type of information that we're looking for in this particular document. All right. And a quick example of what a letter of intent will look like at the end of the pre-inspection stage in eecp. So once you've submitted your application to us in the initial phase, our team will review it. And then once that application receives initial approval, we'll process that into what's called the pre-inspection step, which is also the review, secondary review we undertake to make sure we can issue your letter of intent. And so once that has met with approval, the LOI is sent to you and to the customer within 2 to 3 weeks from the time that the initial application is submitted. Just remember that until the LOI is issued, you are compelled to release the customer from their contract if they so wish. Does anybody have any questions on these steps? All right. So we'll move on to the next step of the eecp workflow. So once the LOI has been issued, then we move into the installation stage. So you get to go ahead and install that system on the customer's roof. So in the installation workflow step, this is where you make any changes that have occurred to the system during installation. So for instance, if the module count or inverter count or the model is changed, if there's been any change to the orientations in the arrays, and any of these types of measures should be updated during the installation step before you process it into inspection, just so that we're aware of the changes and our inspectors know what to expect when they get to the site. This is where you would also upload any remaining documents that are missing in the rebate application workflow, such as the invoice or revised layouts if the measures have changed. And this is also where you'll request inspection by processing out of the installation step. So as an example for the installation step, please make any changes to the measured properties that may have occurred. This is the last chance to update any measures on your end within the rebate application process. So again, click in the white space on the side of the measures page here in order to activate these drop-down menus. Third step of the installation phase is to upload remaining documents, as mentioned before. The only required document is the invoice. A couple of pro tips here. Make sure you open the installation step before you open the documents section. Val walked us through what the documents uploading looks like at the application stage a few minutes ago. And this is just another screenshot of what it looks like at the installation step. Another pro tip, if the warranty statement is already on the invoice, please put a note in the comments section of eecp as well. We do allow the warranty statement to be in a separate document, but we commonly see the warranty info included on the invoice as well. All right, the fourth step for the installation process is to request final inspection. So please request that inspection only after the work on the system has been completed and it's been fully QA'd in accordance with our inspection checklist. Just remember that incomplete work will amount to a failed inspection once our inspectors come out and they find any deficiencies. And that in order to maintain participating contractor status, you are required to maintain a pass rate above 70% across all your inspections. So in order to process out of the installation step and trigger the post-inspection step in eecp, you'll select the outcome on this page here as work complete. And then you'll want to set the reason in this drop-down box here as request final inspection. You'll also fill in the actual visit date, and you can just include the date that you're processing the application into the next step. And then you'll go up and hit this process button on the top left here. Once you've done that, it will trigger the post-inspection step. austinenergy will schedule the date and time for the inspection, and both you and the customer will be automatically notified both when the inspection is requested here and when it is scheduled later. Note that this process applies to rebated projects. If you're performing a project that is outside of the rebate program, to request an inspection, you'll send your request to solarinspections@austinenergy.com. So here's an example of what an invoice would look like for uploading at the installation stage. So you should include the company name consistent with what's in eecp on the CAF and what's on your contract with the customer. And the customer name and installation address must, of course, match the application in eecp, and also it's listed on the CAF. The customer signature, again, the same person who signed the CAF. And the date of signing, of course. All descriptions of all the equipment involved in the PV system, so including the make, model, and quantity of the solar modules used and the inverters used as well. The remaining elements do not need to be itemized, however. That's optional. And the total project cost should match the application cost. Just remember that costs not eligible for federal tax credits or local incentives should be itemized separately from that. Does anyone have any questions about the installation stage?
Hello.
Huh?
Hey,
Arnold?
yeah, I have a question concerning like a temporary disconnect during the install stage.
Okay.
Like if we were to set up a temporary disconnect, what inspector should we call? Should we call Solar Inspections or the city to reconnect the same day?
Right. So you're talking about a temporary shutdown and then a reconnect. So if it's a temporary shutdown and reconnect, I believe the answer is to contact DSD for that. You'll need to schedule those steps through them. So austinenergy doesn't, well, actually, I think the first step is there's a number to call at austinenergy to handle the shutdown. But I need to double check on that.
That's correct, David. And it's in the, at the end of this presentation, we have a contact list that is that specific reference. So, we will send a PDF of this presentation out as well as the recording. It's also, I believe that contact is also listed in the design guide, or sorry, the design criteria. But unfortunately, all we handle are the inspections. So if you are doing a shutdown because you're doing a service panel rebuild or something like that, all of that is run through ESD, and we unfortunately have no influence over their process. But the contacts, as I noted, are in the end of this presentation, and you can reach out to them. I believe that they typically do the shutdown and restart on the same day. So they'll schedule generally, I think they'll schedule you a block of time to do it, because obviously they don't want, we don't want our customers going overnight without power.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And yeah, Arnold, if you have any other questions on that come up later, just feel free to email us at solar@austinenergy.com as well. We can provide more information through that channel too. All right, the next step is
Sorry, really quick. I have a comment from Lauren that I'm not totally clear on. You need a 304 and 305 inspection for the inspections. Lauren, did you want to speak to what you're talking about?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some assistance. There is a contact for the outages, but as far as getting the power switched on same day, you use the Austin Building Connect portal to request a 304 and a 305 inspection. 304 is the rough-in, and the 305 is the final electrical for the panel upgrade outage. I just, if that helps.
No, that does help.
Thank you so
Lauren.
much. Yeah.
And again, that 304 and 305 will be conducted by DSD inspectors at the Development Services Department. And then the final solar inspection, our team will handle here at Austin Energy. All right, that's a good segue into the post-inspection step of the workflow here. So that's what's triggered after the installation phase. So a reminder on how to request an inspection, as we've gone over for rebated projects in Austin Energy Service Territory, you'll use the eecp portal. For anything that is in Austin Energy Service Territory that is not within the rebate program, you'll email solarinspections@austinenergy.com. This includes applications, non-rebated projects that are outside of the city limits in the ETJ, but still within Austin Energy Service Territory. And then anything that is within the city limits but is outside of our service territory, that is not handled by Austin Energy. So you'll need to request those solar inspections through the DSD portal, so the permit portal, the Austin Building Connect. Just remember, do not request inspection through DSD for Austin Energy projects. You can request that through us, through eecp, or through solar inspections, and we'll get that scheduled out for you. All right, after the inspection passes, then we go to the QA steps. This is where we do final document review here at Austin Energy to make sure that everything checks out before the rebate is paid to the customer. So at the QA review stage, these are the documentation requirements and what we need to see in order to make sure that everything is good to go for the rebate payment. So the invoice should include the name and address of the customer and the contractor, signatures from both the customer and contractor, as well as correct information on all the equipment used in the project, as well as the rebate amount and the designee for the rebate and the total cost of the system. And also the invoice should include, or the invoice can include the warranty, or the warranty can be included in a separate document, but that warranty must state a minimum of 10 years for the workmanship and equipment warranties for each one of those. And the final layout is the other documents that must be included. So that needs to include, again, the customer name and address, the correct equipment used for the system, and the contractor name and address, as well as a map of the roof, so a good diagram for that, as well as an endorsement from a NAPCEP professional. All right, now we've reached the program compliance stage, and I believe we're going to have Mary take over here just for this last bit.
All right. Hello, everyone. Oh my goodness, of course. Sorry, I thought my phone was on mute. All right, so compliance. The purpose of our compliance program is to instill and reward good business practices, right? We have no interest in having extra paperwork or implementing rules for rules' sake, right? So keep that in mind as we go through this portion. Next, please. Okay, so the return on investment calculation. The important part of this is, like I think we was mentioned earlier, Austin Energy issues solar credits based on the value of solar, not net metering. So when you give proposals to your customers, you need to be communicating the return on investment via the value of solar, right? And then a utility rate escalator. So because of the fact that we are a municipal utility and we have certain affordability metrics, right? Then we have committed to being the lowest in the lower half of the Texas utilities, and that we won't increase our annual rate any more than 2% per year, right? So if you have a standard sort of proposal that includes a utility rate escalator that has an assumption that there's going to be anything more than that, you'll need to also adjust for that factor. And then the federal tax credit, if the customer does not actually owe taxes or owes less than the tax credit, they may not be able to leverage the full benefit. So just make sure that you're communicating that with the customer. If there's any doubt, speak to a tax consultant. We really want to make sure that the best practice, I should say instead, is that you would take the total installed cost and then subtract any sort of discounts and local incentives, and that would be the basis for the tax credit, right? So there are other methods of calculating the basis, but the one I just described is the recommended method, right? And then right now it is the prevailing rate is 26%. Of course, it's a federal incentive, so keep an eye on it on the national level to see what's happening there. But that's what it is right now. Next, please. Okay, signatures. We know when documents are being altered. I guess the point of this slide here is that the documentation, the contracts, any sort of things that we have customers sign, that includes the customer agreement form and guidelines, etc. They are considered to be agreements between you and the customer, right? And so anytime you sign it and they sign it, if there's a change that's made along the way after those signatures have been obtained, it's very important to get their signature again. That's the way that we're able to confirm that they are agreeing to this new agreement, right? And so that is why we are very serious about signatures. Okay, so we will accept handwritten signatures. We do recommend we do require that you use a verifiable tracking method like DocuSign or something else where we can actually verify. And again, like I said, you providing a new signature if there have been changes, that is our way of knowing that the customer agrees to what's happening. Don't backdate the forms, don't have the customer sign a document before you fill in the information. Obviously, they didn't agree to the information that's being put in if they haven't even seen it and they're signing it beforehand. And any information that's altered after the customer has signed. Valerie, is there any sort of anything else that you wanted to contribute? Because I know you deal a lot with the customers' signatures in the review process.
I think you covered it very well. Yeah, but just and since we brought this up, we've been starting to talk about it since January. We've seen a lot of improvement. I know during this period of sort of adjustment, it's causing a lot of extra paperwork. But yeah, as I said, if you have a DocuSign, a Write signature, whatever platform you're using, you do have a function to save it instead of to print it. And so, that's just the big thing. Please let anybody that's dealing with documents in your company, please let them know that saving the file is always the right thing to do.
Oh, thank you, Val.
Sorry, just a couple quick comments. I have to jump off. So please, everybody, direct your questions and your attendance information to Valerie Paxton. And another quick note, there is an error on the invoice slide. The contractor signature is not required on the invoice, only the customer signature. We'll update the slides before we send them out. But thank you guys for catching that and letting me know so that we could rectify that. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you. All right. And actually, I just realized the time, so let me try to go through this a little bit quicker. Okay. All right. Compliance. Misleading advertising. Again, this is all about transparency. So we want whoever's doing your sales needs to be accurately communicating anything that the customer is thinking they're going to be receiving, right? Whether that's related to the production that the system is going to give them, whether it's return on investment, whether that is the cost or the equipment, et cetera. The list goes on. I know that the current model for a lot of of companies is to have a sales department that's a little bit independent. Sometimes you will even outsource it to people's like to lead generators, right? Ultimately, we will hold your participating contractors responsible. So be sure that you know what is being communicated to the customers and that it is accurate, right? Okay. Next. Shade. Oh my goodness, how do I do this quickly? So we take this very seriously. Like this investing in solar is a major decision for people, right? And we require that 75%, at least 75% of the total solar resource fraction, so the optimal amount of sun that can be, available for the array in that particular orientation in Intel, excuse me. That should definitely, we require at least 75%. And there are times that we will kick back applications because it looks like either in the field or just by spot checking that the shading is going to be an issue, right? If we request an analysis, be sure you provide a layout and along with the map that shows where the modules are located. It needs to include all this information. I won't read to you, but be sure to really review that and to avoid a warning. Your average, I'm glad this said this. Yes. So this average, not per module, TSRF should be 75% or higher, right? And we want that received within 10 business days. We take this very seriously. And so, yes. And I'm not trying to skip over anything important because this is a super important slide. Again, Valerie, do you have anything you want to talk about with this one?
Mary, I think you did a great job of covering it. Yeah, we have added some, some calculations in the ECP from when we're processing to help look at this. It's really helpful if you guys go ahead and add a satellite photo that shows the surrounding, one that's pulled back a little bit and that shows the neighbor's house or surrounding trees in the layout itself. And we just ask that you guys take this into account when you are, presenting production information to your clients. It's become apparent to us that there are quite a few contractors that don't know how to use a Suneye or do shading reports, and it breaks my heart, y'all. It really does, and it makes customers pretty upset with their contractor and also with the program, and that's not our goal. So yeah, please do make sure that all of your salespeople understand the impact of shade to production and to your customers' return on investments, and that you guys are submitting appropriate documentation to us. Yeah. So Mary, I think you said everything perfectly. All I can do is put an emotional oomph behind it.
Sorry about. Yeah, I mean, like. All right, perfect. Thank you for that, Valerie. And then David next.
Also add something here.
Oh yes, please, Tim.
If you do have a project that has shading, an acceptable amount of shading, make sure that you're communicating how that's going to impact the generation to the customer. If we look on your CAF form and see that you're communicating to the customer that they're going to get production as if there is no shading on the system, and then find that there is shading on the system, we find that to be very deceptive, and especially when it's part of the upfront conversation that's leading the customer to sign a contract. And so we definitely frown upon that and can and will take action against that if we find that it's occurring. So just keep that in mind. If there's shading, make sure you're communicating the impacts of the shading to the customer.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, all of the compliance, it's all about transparency and customer communications. So, yeah, And I just do want to say I really do appreciate you all hanging on. I know that we are already 9 minutes over. I will go through this as quickly as possible. That will still allow for the information to come through. So we're almost there. Just hang in there. All right. Fair and Accurate Credit Transactions Act, FACTA. This is an important federal law. Next slide. Sorry, federal act that mandates businesses and individuals to take appropriate security measures to protect customers' information, right? So like it focuses on how we handle the customer information. And all of our contractors, you're going to have access to information that is sensitive to customers. You're going to get their account numbers, you're going to have their addresses, and in some cases, a lot of their credit information. And so, we do want to make sure that you're aware of how important it is and that it is an actual federal act, right? So next, please. The requirements is that you take appropriate measures, right, to protect it. That include customer information, that includes account information, the full Social Security account number, Social Security number, and really just any bits of information, right? Like when you think about verifying information when you call a bank or something like that, sure, a lot of it can be publicly searched, but it's the combination of this data can allow people to get your identity, right? So anything, right? So examples of appropriate security measures would be truncation of credit and debit cards, limiting the access of information of records, making sure throughout your company that you're communicating the importance of it and the responsibility of compliance and creating an environment where data is safe. So, if you're working in an office, that would be, logging off of your computer or having physical files in a place where they're locked if you leave, or at least, just out of the way for other colleagues or people who could be happening to walk by your desk. And if you're at your house, the same applies. We want to be very trusting of our people who live in our homes, our pod mates, but it's still customer information. So close down that laptop, put those documents away, and really safeguard that data. Next, please. All right, and so what data is included? Like I was mentioning earlier, name, social security number, driver's license, phone number, physical address, email address, anything that can be used to verify identity. Just keep that, try to limit access to that information. And who's responsible? Everyone. austinenergy and all of our vendors and contractors are responsible for compliance with FACTA, right? So we are required to communicate the importance and ensure that you are being compliant with FACTA guidelines. So at the conclusion of this, for anybody who hasn't completed the fair and accurate, like the statement of acknowledgement that you've participated in a training session about it, we will be reaching out to you individually after the meeting, just to get you to sign these forms saying that we've spoken about this with you, and we will be reviewing the training annually, right? Just to keep the reminder going. If you come to these meetings regularly, you hear this every time, but it's because it's very important. So next, please. Who to contact? This will be super fast. All right, helpful links. These are, the links that can come from the website can be really, really, really long and convoluted. And in a way to make it easy for you to communicate the web addresses to your customers, we have what are called Go links. So if you want to share the solar education course, austinenergy.com/go/solar101, etc. We have links here to the English course, Spanish course, solar program information, community solar program information for anyone who maybe you go out to their house and perform an assessment and they're not able to participate in an installation, but they want to still go solar. That's a good link to give them. And Green Choice is our 100% Texas wind program, another good resource. Hey, we just are promoting renewables, period. So next, please. All right, and then so the next, I believe, 2 or 3 slides, it's basically, these are useful contacts As I think everybody who's presented before has mentioned, we don't own all of the pieces of the process, right? So there's sometimes you're going to need to communicate with the permit shop. There's sometimes we're going to need the metering department. There's sometimes where you're going to need, just either way, you get the point. There's different times we're going to have to reach out to different departments that are not us, that we don't own. And so as a way to give you like a quick reference guide, if you have something they're like, oh man, I need a have a meter seal cut. Okay, well, here's the number and the email. Or meter variance, and I don't remember where that is. It's also on here. I do want to reinforce, if you forget that this is available, no big deal. Email solar@austinenergy.com and we'll help you out. But yes, the next few slides have a lot of just really quick, handy resources for those things. So I think that is it. Perfect. 15